Yesterday, President Trump accused Democrats of being unreasonable to push for $3 trillion in economic relief for Americans and said his 4 executive actions will, quote, take care of pretty much this entire situation after congressional talks broke down. Joining me now to respond is the Democratic Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me just start with what just happened in my interview with the president's chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. He said that the White House didn't know how many states would contribute to the president's plan to supplement unemployment insurance or how long it would take for those payments to kick in. What's your response?
Well, first, good morning, Dana. It's nice to be with you on a Sunday morning. Let us all be prayerful that we can meet the needs of the American people, especially as we all watch the angst that is associated with sending children back to school. What the president's advisor said it really shows the weakness and the meagerness of what the president proposed. First of all, he's saying states have the money. No, they don't. They have expenses from the coronavirus. They have lost revenue. Because of that, they are firing healthcare workers, first responders, teachers, and the rest, sanitation, transportation workers, because they don't have the money. Second of all, everything is left out. Our assistance to the schools, feeding the hungry, helping people who are going to be evicted. The president's didn't even do a moratorium. He just did a study or a look at a moratorium. So again, something's wrong. Either the president doesn't know what he's talking about, clearly his aides don't know what he is talking about, or something's very wrong here about meeting the needs of the American people.
Well, let's talk about what he did do or what he said he did with these executive actions. Are they legal? And if you don't think they are you going to sue to block them?
Well, the fact is that whether they're legal or not takes time to figure out. I associate myself remarks with Senator Sass, who says they're unconstitutional slop.
But will you sue?
I think that's right. Well, right now we want to address the needs of the American people. As my constitutional advisors tell me, they're absurdly unconstitutional. But right now, our focus, and that's a parallel thing. Right now, the focus, the priority has to be on, again, meeting the needs of the American people, sufficiently allocating resources to send children to school, not threatening schools that if they don't have actual attendance, they won't get the federal dollars.
So given that, are negotiations going to resume, or are negotiations dead?
I hope so. We have a big difference, and here's why. For example, millions of children in America are food insecure, and their families as well. But I always like to focus on the children. In our bill, we have tens of billions of dollars to address the hunger needs in our country, which are there normally, but exacerbated during the pandemic. We have tens of billions of dollars. They have $250,000. So do they care? You know, I have a prayer that I say, let's pray for those who are hungry. Let's pray harder for those who will not feed them. Then we go to the Princeton lab on eviction lab says that we need these resources. There are going to be this many millions of evictions, and the president is going to study it. They're going to look at it.
Right. So given that you are the Speaker of the House, you have enormous power. You've been in these negotiations.
Yes.
Given what you just said about people hungry and worried and very, very fearful, why not get back in that room and come up with a compromise on some of these core issues? I understand you want to get the best possible for people, but at some point you got to work with the other side, right?
Well, that's right. And that's why we said we'll come down $1 trillion. Not that we cut out any of our priorities, but we shorten the length of time in which they would be in effect. And next year we can extend them again. And they could add some, tens of trillions, 60 trillion actually, $250,000. There's a long way for us to come together. But we'll come down a trillion, you go up a trillion, we'll find our common ground there. Let's go to the table.
Okay. So why aren't you? Why aren't you at the table then? Why aren't you guys working all weekend then to try to figure that out?
Come back when you want to put up some more money, but we can't accept the meager pass that they have there. And by the way, this is really an issue that takes a lot of our time, opening up our schools. We have the data that shows that if you open up actually, if you open up virtually, and if you open up hybrid, it costs just about the same amount of money. And so what we've seen is of the 100 largest school districts, 62 are opening 100% virtual. And yet the president's saying, unless you open up actual, we're withholding federal dollars.
So I want to talk specifically about this extra $600 a week in unemployment benefits that expired. Two top Obama economic officials, Tim Geithner and Jason Furman, wrote in June that extending $600 would, quote, does not make sense now. You're standing firm on that number, on that $600. Why are you insisting on that as opposed to having a compromise with the Republicans so that people out there who are hungry, who desperately need that money, could get something rather than nothing, which is what they have now?
Well, let's just say that the $600, many economists tell us, I didn't even see that on their part, many economists tell us that that has kept many, many millions of people out of poverty, A. B, what they put on the floor of the House Senate last week was $200.
Okay, so you have 600, they have 200. What about 400? I mean, that seems like a pretty clear compromise.
What the president proposed yesterday at his country club, surrounded by his people who must spend thousands of dollars to join, is something that won't even work. He's talking about, well, I'll put up 400 and the states will put up 100.
Right, he's talking about executive action, which is questionable. I'm talking about doing it the right way.
I'm saying that what he put forth is not even workable.
Would you do $400 extra?
I'm not negotiating that right here. It depends on what else is in the bill. It depends on what else is in the bill. When they have $250,000 for food, nothing for elections, withholding funds from schools who want to open up virtually and the rest. Again, no money for those who will be evicted because that's the same kitchen table. I either get this money and I can help me pay the rent, or I don't get this.
I understand you don't want
to get no money to pay the rent.
I understand you don't want to negotiate with me, but my question is, are Republicans right when they say you will not come off of your $600 number? You will not come off of other figures, other policy initiatives that you want,
well, some of them,
and that's why you're at stalemate.
Yeah, no, that's not why we're at stalemate. We're not at stalemate because the Republicans have, from the start, never understood the gravity of the situation that we are in. They have called it a hoax. They've called it their delay, denial, distortion of this pandemic. And we cannot open our economy or open our schools safely unless we address the pandemic. So the basic thing is they have ignored that. The problem has grown. And it has become an enormous economic problem.
Do you take any responsibility, Madam Speaker, for the fact that this is stuck?
Others have said, the chairman of the Fed, other economists have said, pay now or pay more later. So what we're saying is, let's help those who need it the most. Let's send our children safely to school. Let's make sure they have food, make sure their families are not evicted, make sure that their grandparents are not getting their.
But right now they have nothing, as you well know, because those things expired. So
Well, what do you think that get out of a $250,000 food designation in the Republican plan? In other words, you're acting as if there's some great big thing that they're proposing.
I'm not. I'm asking if there's room for compromise on your end.
Of course there's room for compromise, but you have to see the entire package.
So I want to ask about that. The next spending deadline, as you know better than I, for Congress to take action is September 30th. So is it possible that Americans will have to wait until late September, almost 2 months from now, without any congressional relief?
On September 30th to do what? I'm sorry, I missed.
So that's the next deadline, when you all have to act on spending.
That's right.
Is it possible so is it possible that this stalemate is going to last until then, that people aren't going to get relief from you all in Congress until then?
Oh, these are two separate issues. What we do on the appropriations process to meet our fiscal year deadline is one thing.
And so you're confident you're going to get back to the table and figure this out?
Well, we have to. We have to. And that's why we were willing to say we'll come down $1 trillion. That doesn't mean the needs of the American people have gone down. It just means we recognize that they have a disdain for the needs of the American people. That's why they question whether people even need the $600. That's why they question, they say to me, some people just don't want to pay rent. We're like, well, you know what? Most people do.